too. Your staying power, yes. And I apologize. We had a couple other events, as you know, from the other candidates, and then all of a sudden, I was on the back of the train on the last one. Even Jason Bartlett, who I'm his chair on public health, somehow talking to Jerry Garcia went in front of me. So we have a meeting tomorrow, so I got to say, legislatively, I should exact something from Jason. I don't know. He did a good job. But thank you so much for having me again. I do appreciate the time and the persistence. Jonathan Harris, State Senator from the 5th District, which is West Hartford, Farmington, Burlington, and Bloomfield. And I am exploratory. I'm in the process of transitioning or running for Secretary of State. Let me start out by telling you a little bit about myself and why I'm doing this, my accomplishments, and then tell you a little bit about my vision for Secretary of State. I was born actually in North End of Hartford, and some of my first memories were of politics, of community organizing. My parents, I'm proud to say, were Democratic activists. Were community activists, and I remember actually going to what we used to call old people's homes. I think it was the Hebrew home on Tower Avenue, if I remember correctly. And I had a little sign. I guess I was cute back then, I was smaller. And I remember sitting down there and singing K-L-E-V-A-N, like it's today. That voice was in my head. So basically, that was instilled in me, and wherever I lived, when I grew up, I would show up, I would sign up, and I would go to work. Went through high school in West Hartford, went and after undergrad worked for 2 years for Congresswoman Barbara Kennelly down in Washington, went up to NYU Law School. I've actually been practicing law for 20 years, mostly private practice through that, but I did spend, in addition to my private practice, 6 years as counsel to the House Democrats. In 2000, after being on town committees like yourself and doing a lot of volunteering, I said it's time for me to step up and to actually run. And I ran against a guy who was then a 20-year incumbent named Bob Farr. Does anyone remember Bob Farr?
Yeah.
Well, I beat Bob Farr in election day by 43 votes. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, as the story goes, there was a recount 6 days later, and I lost by 9 votes out of 12,000. It was tough, I remember at first, but I picked myself up, brushed myself off, and I think in particular compared to what was going on in Florida at that time, with the hanging chads and all the fighting, it was recognized. And the following February of 2001, I was appointed to a seat on the West Hartford Town Council. Following November of 2001, ran with a new slate, a lot of really energetic young people in particular, much younger than I was, and we took back the majority. And I became mayor of the town in which I grew up. And if you remember back to 2001, it's tough given what we're facing economically today. But if you remember back to that time, the economy tanked in the wake of 9/11. And we had to really quickly figure out what we could do to preserve the quality of our schools, the property values, strong property values, the vibrant commercial areas, and the community participation, the things that we identified as making West Hartford a solid community. And so we took a step back, took a deep breath, and we actually reinvented our government. We consolidated departments on the Board of Ed side and the town side, several of them. We changed the way we delivered our healthcare service. We modernized our fire department. And we did all of this with the cooperation of the town council, the Board of Education, our workers. At the same time that Governor Rowland was fighting with the state employees, we actually worked with our employees to create solutions. And of course, a lot of citizen participation. We were able actually to get ourselves off the watch list that the supposedly fiscally responsible Republicans had put us on in good times. And in bad times, we got ourselves off the watch list to preserve the town. But we didn't want to stop there. We said, we're a fully developed town. We need a long-term plan on how we can preserve our quality of our schools and our services. And we did a lot of things. The largest one that you probably heard of is Blueback Square. We transformed 2 boarded up, polluted car dealerships into a $150 million mixed-use development, which I'm proud to say has created 600 permanent new jobs in the area. Added in the first year alone an additional 30,000 trips to our pre-existing center, and added over 2 mill points on the commercial side of our grand list. And you all know how important that commercial grand list is. I mean, you have a wonderful town that have done a lot of that here. That was crucial. When I got to the Senate, I was first chair of the Committee on Aging, then chair of the Human Services Committee, and now, of course, the Public Health Committee. So I've spent a lot of time trying to help develop the continuum of care, to help the elderly, people with disabilities, remain in the most independent situation they can, living with dignity, preferably at home for as long as we can. But there's one issue that actually pops up, and this even over sustenance, which we worked on, of course, hard last year, that pops up. And when I was first Human Services Chair, they came to me and said, you know, we have a problem that victims of sexual assault are not getting the highest standard of care, compassionate care. And it had been a fight several years before. We were unable to bring that through the House and the Senate. And I said, you know something, it's an important issue, it's the right thing to do. I'm willing to step up and take that on. But I saw immediately, right when we took on that issue, that there were serious concerns that people had about their faith and what requiring this standard of care might do to people's religious beliefs. And so instead of doing what we could have done, because we had the votes to basically ram the thing through the House and the Senate, get it passed, but who knows? We didn't know if the governor would veto it or wouldn't veto it. We could have done it that way. We took a step back again, and we brought everybody to the table, and we actually worked out what's known as a third-party solution that was sensitive to those religious concerns, and ended up passing the Senate by 33-3, the House by an overwhelming majority, and was signed into law by the governor. And I tell you about this because I think that we need, in this cycle, and going forward in the state of Connecticut, leadership that's willing to take on the difficult fights, but that is also willing at times to take a step back and to try to work with different constituencies, different parties, different people to be able to come up with solutions. I will tell you though, even with these larger issues that people can read about, it's not that actually kind of inspires me to get up every morning. It's not that which pushes me to try to be your next Secretary of State. It's really the small things. When I first was elected mayor, I was called one morning by a 93-year-old woman, and her niece, who lived with her, had left the house abruptly and moved across country. The woman was not able to get her recycling, her trash out to the curb. And I could go out there, West Hartford, I'll call Public Works, and they'll immediately come and take out that trash. Of course, quickly it doesn't work that way. And it was going to take a couple weeks. So for 2 weeks in a row, I actually went and I took the woman's trash and recycling out to the curb. And it's really actually those kinds of things that at least allow me to go to sleep at night, to get to bed with a smile on my face, realizing that I've done something that's important, that I've helped. My vision for Secretary of the State, 3 basic things. 1, building participation at the voting booth, but also in our communities. 2, the Secretary of the State as a true business advocate. And 3, a stepped up use of e-government so that the Secretary of the State's office can be a focal point for information. On all of these things, and in the first one in particular, we've had great representation. Susan Beisowitz, Miles Rappaport, Julia Tashjian, to get the basic platform of democracy. And I really don't think it's only about voting. We had 225,000, I believe, additional registrations in the 08 election. What we really need to focus on is that citizenship, which is not a seasonal thing. Citizenship shouldn't just be going out to vote once a year. And a couple things that I've done